Before we jump right into this episode with Louis Phillips, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors of the podcast, Switch Nutrition. Now, if you guys have been a regular listener to the Pocket Podcast, you would know that I've worked with this brand for quite some time now. More specifically, the products that I keep on raving about is the Adrenal and the Hydrate by Switch. The Adrenal I take 30 minutes before bed, and it's a sleep formula, and I sleep like a baby. And the Hydrate I take within the first 30 minutes of me waking up with a liter of water to get me fully equipped and hydrated to attack the day's activities. I absolutely love this brand, and if you guys want to pick some up for yourself, you can go to switchnutrition.com.au or click the link in the description or the show notes below and use code Griffin, and you'll get 20% off your entire order. Once again, if you click the link in the description or the show notes below, you'll go to the Switch Nutrition website, a direct product page of all the products that I absolutely love, and you can use code Griffin for 20% off at checkout. So without further ado, let's get into the episode with Louis Phillips. Louis, before the show, I got you to write down a quote for me, something that you love, something that came to mind straight away. And you wrote one from Jordan Peterson. You wrote, "You start progressing when you can start." I'm so intrigued by that quote and what that means to you.
Yeah. As I said, I'm not like the biggest quotes person, generally speaking, but that one's definitely resonated with me. And I think particularly with kind of the development of having an audience, as you'd know, like you really realize that where people start is totally up to them, and it's like their own situation. So, you know, right now I'm training for some ultra marathons. Like that doesn't mean anyone else has to be training for a marathon to start. Like if getting out of bed is the start for you, then let it be the start. Like that's as much of a win. If, you know, brushing your teeth is really difficult in the morning, and it's just as difficult for me to run 20 Ks. It's the same kind of thing.
It's all relative, I guess.
It's relative, exactly.
It's relative to where you are in your life, but then I guess that ties well into like that whole saying around comparison's the thief of all joy.
Yeah.
Because you're always comparing yourself. With social media, it's so hard not to.
It is.
Because with the click of a couple of buttons, you can look at someone's dream life when in reality, all it is a highlight reel. They're not really seeing it.
Oh, mate.
But like having that at our disposal can be really challenging for people's mental health and for them to start, because what they see is they see them in the mud, struggling in living this shit life. And then they look at this highlight reel of someone and go, geez, that's not attainable.
Yeah.
And they don't really see that it can be achievable.
It's all linked, isn't it? But I think that, you know, the Jordan Peterson thing, like I'm not huge on Jordan Peterson, but that was just a passing comment he made in a podcast I listened to, and I thought it's so like relevant, and it's so like, I'm sure you notice that with your audience and some of the messages you get and stuff. I've been lucky enough to have that as well, where you really realize like just by posting this kind of small reel or what feels like nothing to yourself, it's just a story, like that could actually directly affect someone's life for the better. So, you know, using that when you can.
You literally don't understand, I think, until you don't truly understand until you meet them in real life. I think it's like there's this one story that I'll quickly brush over because it's like, it's been on my mind ever since it happened. I told it to my dad the other day and he like started crying because you don't realize the impact you make. Like you just post these videos, you gain all these followers, and all you see is like some little numbers going on a screen. You get some paragraphs, but it's behind an app, so you don't really realize the impact you make. And then you see someone in real life that says something. And I was in Burleigh watching the sunrise, and I was with this girl, and we were basically just watching the sunrise on the hill. And beautiful, right? Nice morning. I look behind me just because why not? And I have this little glance, and this lady, she was probably like 40, locked eyes with me. And she had her son, like 6-year-old son, just like had her arm around her son. They were sitting down. And yeah, 40, you could tell that she'd like been through some shit.
Yeah.
And she locked eyes with me straight away. And so I was like, what the hell? The first words that left her mouth, she goes, "You've saved my life on multiple occasions."
Jeez. Yeah.
And like, I just froze. I was like, I fully froze. Because I just go like you don't throw those words around. You don't just like say that. And you could see it how she meant it. And she was just like, yeah, look, like I've been through some really tough times, divorce, and you were my comfort person I look forward to every morning.
Yeah.
And you go like, all I do is post videos.
Literally.
Don't even think about that.
Exactly. And I think that's the world of social media particularly, is like you kind of have to be a little bit insane to like want to like grow followers and everything. But if you kind of cut it back to the core of it, which is making videos to improve other people's lives or to help improve other people's lives, then you actually see that come to fruition with a person coming up to you and saying, like you've literally saved my life. It takes kind of the sadistic mindset out of it of just wanting to build followers and turns it into kind of a world where like, oh, I actually am kind of improving and I am adding to this world. And I think, you know, coming back to that quote, like that's exactly what it is like the more people that can understand that you start where you can start, whether that be, you know, for me, it's running, like whether that be going for a 200-meter walk or going for a 50K jog. Like that doesn't matter. It's so variable and it's open to all.
Yeah, 100%. And I think taking that first step is always the hardest, right? It's one of those things that is so daunting because it's something new. And I guess when you're doing something new, it's uncomfortable because you're not good at that thing. Yeah. And so you can kind of get a bit daunting. And that's why I love when people, when I got told that, this quote, I've said it so many times about, you know, you don't have to be the best at what you're teaching. You just need to be 3 steps ahead of the people that you're teaching. It's so powerful, these people that aren't these professionals that start posting stuff online to help people because they might only be 3 steps ahead of the people that they can help, right? And so these people that they're helping, they don't see these guys as like this really far away, unachievable goal. They can like nearly reach you. And so when I look at your running journey, and you started posting like, I'm not that good at running, I'm getting into it, I've had a good fitness thing, but I've got to run this marathon and here's where I'm up to, I'm going to try and get a sub 25K. And you posted all these things that are achievable to people. They relate to that and they feel like you're the person that can actually help them, not David Goggins.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it, isn't it? And I think it's understanding like I know for me personally, like I don't resonate or relate to the David Goggins stuff. Tom, Prime Train, my housemate, loves him. Like stickers of him up on the wall, obsessed with David Goggins. And like that stuff works for him. So it's like there's two, you know, we're similar people in terms of interests and maybe energy, but we have completely different kind of learning, like things we learn from. So,
things that motivate you as well, I guess. Like some things maybe are a bit full on for some and then some other people love it.
Yeah. What do you like the David Goggins stuff or are you more?
Not really. Like when he's running, like for me, the really extreme things, I kind of go like, why the fuck are you doing that stuff? Yeah. Like, I don't know. For me, I do some ridiculous stuff. Like I'm in the ice bath at 4:30 a.m. It was 4:15 a.m. this morning coming to here. And it's like, because it's the commitments that I hold to myself that I actually really value. And I notice that the main driver for me is the character building. Because when you actually strip it back, I look at the things that actually matter in life. We spoke just before about impact, and it's not just about the following. The following and the buzz of growing all this audience wears off.
Oh, mate.
It really, like that buzz gets old and it wears off, right? And so you need to have a bigger driver. And so that's why when someone comes up to me and says something, that's all I need. That gives me energy for the next couple of months to keep posting. Yeah. And so you look at it and go, I strip back and I go, what actually matters? And I look at it and I go, make an impact, because I think that's what's going to fulfill me. But then I just look long term and I go, okay, who do I need to be to attract the dream mother to my children? Like, what are the characteristics that I need to build so that when my son gets asked who's your biggest role model, he says his father. Like all these things in the long term that actually matter. I look at that and I go, okay, let's just make sure that we're taking steps closer to that every single day. Yeah. I want to ask you on that note, like things that you're striving towards. You've been doing the social media game for a bit now, because I remember back in the day just with 9 to 5 and the stuff that you guys were doing there, which was really cool, and we'll definitely scratch a bit of the surface of what you did back then. But like when you go through these different phases of your life, you different growth, different challenges, like what is the thing when you get when it gets tough, like that you are striving towards, so you remind yourself of to keep going?
Mate, it's a great question. And like I'm fast becoming a bit of an old dog in the industry now, which I love, because it's like often quite a short-lived thing. Like there's so many people who, I remember when we first started 9 to 5 fitness, like we were on par or people were so much further ahead of us, maybe it be like in terms of followers or just in terms of impact in general. And now they've, completely, maybe not fallen off, it's not the right word, but gone on to other and different things.
Or dropped off a cliff. You can say that.
Yeah, they fell off, to be honest. They're still posting, but
you're too kind.
Yeah, let's cut the crap. But I think, like what is it that keeps you going, keeps you involved? And there's certainly ups and downs. Like, man, there's been plenty of downs and I've lost interest plenty of times. But what it comes back to for me is just like that constant kind of steadfast approach. Like I'm just always going to be there, always going to be showing up. And I think in a world of social media where you've got people who are just going so hard one way and then they're quiet for 2 months and then they're back on for a 20-day grind and then they're quiet for the next fucking 3 months, it's like quite easy to stand out if you just keep showing up. And that's what I did. So 9 to 5 fitness, that was really good. I had a partnership there that I left that, not publicly, and then it became very public that I left with a big kind of falling out. And then from there, so how do you build from that? And it's just always been the same thing, just consistency and just consistently showing up. And I think people want to follow you for that. It's not as sexy as some of the stuff, but it does provide value, and it also, I think, provides comfort.
When you talk about 9 to 5 and leaving 9 to 5, when you left 9 to 5, did you have a big following at the time?
No, not at all.
So for you leaving, this was your baby, this was the thing that you guys were building, and then you left that, was that quite a scary thing to do? You built this up and you had to make this decision to go out on your own, not knowing what that looked like. Talk to me about that feeling and what you were going through in that time.
Terrifying. It was genuinely terrifying. A few things with that though. Firstly, it wasn't just like I was with 9 to 5 and then I left. What happened was Gab and I came up with a really great way, and props to Gab as well. We thought this through, and it was technically his company by that point because he'd bought my share. We thought about a way that it could we could almost wean off it over a long period of time. And that was almost executed perfectly until the end. But what happened was I was still able to sell a program through 9 to 5 fitness. I kind of optically looked like I was part of the brand, which was pretty important for that at the time, considering it's 2 people. And then, just kind of slowly wean off it. So I was able to sell a program, make money on the side, and then also look for alternative jobs. And that for me was working at the AFL. I was doing social media at the AFL, publicly known that I did not like that at all. But that transition phase was really difficult. I remember some, hugely stressful times, sleepless nights. But, coming back to the people you have around you and all of that, that's what makes those times, a lot more manageable.
Why did you not like the job at the AFL?
It's a good question. I think, so I just come from doing 3 years or 2 or 3 years, no boss, working for myself, working on my own or alongside Gab. And then you go into a workplace and my job was kind of that I was going to build up this social media account and connecting community footy with the AFL, and it was just like every idea I had, it just couldn't be brought to fruition. I probably wasn't working hard enough. I probably wasn't passionate enough about it, and I just really kind of realized that I can't. I'm gonna have to work so hard to keep growing through these ranks, and in the next 10 years I might go up by 3 ranks, but it's nowhere near where I want to be.
Was the concept of earning money skewed a little bit because of the way you were making money the couple of years prior with programs? Yeah. Because I think that's a big thing that I find with people that, go into careers that can be quite lucrative and then try and go get a job. This is the problem with all the OnlyFans girls at the moment, is their concept of money and earning it is skewed because they think that they can sell a photo of their boobs and make $1,000. So then when they go back and work a job and they realize they have to get paid $30 an hour or something, they go, this is horrible. And then they get depressed and they hate their life. Yeah. Was that a level for you? When you were in 9 to 5 before you went and got the job at the AFL, were you making okay money as well for the programs?
Yeah, really good money, especially for the age. So you're really happy with that. I probably didn't recognize the fact that it's quite sporadic and that income is quite sporadic. So when it's good, let's say you're having big months, making really good money for, 3 months in a row. The next 2 months might be a little bit more quiet. So you can't just
inconsistent.
Yeah, you can't just go off your best months and say that's your yearly earnings, can you? But I think that gave me a bit of a warped idea of, the cash you can make or what you put in is what you get out.
But I think that's so important because now you've got a taste of it. You're not going to settle for less.
Oh, mate, no way.
What lessons do you think when you were leaving 9 to 5? Did do any reflection on all the takeaways or any of the lessons that you learned throughout that journey?
Yeah. Oh, for sure, mate. I think I took away that it is about what you put in. Like if I'm willing, I know the direction I can take this and kind of the style of content I want to do and my angle within the fitness industry. So once you figure that out, like it's all about how hard you can work to kind of bring that to life on social media. So that was definitely a takeaway. I think I also took away the fact I probably wanted to be like working on my own as well and recognized for like my own personal skills, which might not be plugging in numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, but it is more kind of personability and conversational skills. So I think it was a really liberating feeling leaving 9 to 5, but also terrifying. And I still have moments, I'm sure you do as well. And like right now where I have sleepless nights, and you always hear of, let's say let's say Stephen Bartlett, like, oh, I had sleepless nights. But when you're having the sleepless nights, it's not as easy to just say you're just having sleepless nights. Like I'm trying to remind myself, and I often try and remind myself, like these sleepless nights are meant to be had. And like, no one just says they had sleepless nights for the point, like for the sake of it. Like they actually did have nights where they didn't sleep because they're so stressed about X, Y, Z. So
what's the feeling when you're having a sleepless night, when your head hits the pillow and your mind is racing?
Yeah.
Like what are you feeling during those times?
I think it's the what ifs, isn't it? So like when you put so much into something, for me, it's like I'm putting so much into my app right now, Interval. So much time, money, effort. And that's great. Like I want to have like my balls on the line essentially. But it does come with its difficulty. And that's that feeling of kind of like putting your head on the pillow. You run through every single what if, you run through everything you need to do. You run through kind of every comment you've ever seen and like as to why things won't work, as to why it will work. And it's just like a circle in your head. I had Nick Lavery on my podcast, who's an ex-Olympic rower, and he's actually brought me a lot of kind of peace within my sleeping. And he really made a point of like, when you're having those sleepless nights, you almost need to recognize the fact and allow your body to have it. So instead of being like, oh, I need to sleep, you're kind of going more at the angle of like, I'm allowing my body to have these thoughts so I can sleep, and that's helped me a lot.
Do you find like writing stuff down or because for me, I know the feeling and to be honest, it's been like recently it's been this sporadic every now and then where the anxiety comes first thing in the morning or right before bed. And you go, why the fuck do they come in now?
Yeah.
Why do these feelings happen? And you kind of, I don't know, a lot of the time it's as you're saying, like the what ifs, like the overthinking of the, oh shit, like what if this happens or what if this happens? When you're thinking about the what ifs, like what are they? Is it failure of Interval not working? Is it what people are going to think of you if Interval doesn't work? Like what are the thoughts you're having and when you're thinking what
Great
if?
question. I think I'm past the point of caring what people think now. I think I've been in the game long enough where that it genuinely doesn't concern me. But definitely just like the fear of failure and what comes with that. Do I have to start working? Do I have to pick up another job someday? Do I need to rethink everything? Do I need to like reposition my whole life and reposition my whole career? I'd say it's like pretty normal stuff for anyone in the startup space or doing something different from the rest. But it's definitely the fear of failure. But then on top of that, that's where I get driven. Like I'm so driven by failure and I'm so driven not only at the fear of losing, but at the potential of winning. And it sounds so cliche and a little bit cringe, but it really does drive me. So, right now, to be honest, like at a pretty high stress level, just in terms of like at quite a, like the app's been launched, it started really strong. It's still going really strong, but you're not going to continue to have that aggressive climb. It's not always going to be up and right. Like it might just balance out a little bit. And I think, just like recognizing that and seeing that is the situation and saying, all right, these sleepless nights are meant to happen. Yeah,
well, I mean, I've had 2 tech startups have invested on board and the stress that comes with that is one that like there's this, I think I've spoken about this before, but there's Stephen Bartlett and Chris Williamson were on a podcast together and the greats. and
Goats.
basically they were talking about a comparison between Drake's life and Ben Francis's life, Gymshark's life. And they're basically saying like who would you rather be? Drake, he's got all this money and fame, but he can't go to a Nando's without having 800 security guards all around him. He can't basically leave his house. Like, would you rather be living that, being so restricted to what you can do? Or would you rather be Ben Francis, billionaire, he can go to a Nando's and no one knows his name? And Chris was basically making this argument that like Ben's got it way easier than Drake does. And then Stephen goes, you do not have a clue about the thoughts that goes in Ben Francis's mind.
Staff.
He's like, mate, if when they're in the red, they've got to go to the investors and act like everything's going to be all good. They're in the red because of X, Y, and Z, and this is what they're planning to get in the green. Then they've got to walk into the office and it's Monday. It's his favorite. It's staff's favorite day because it's payday, and they're in the red and they don't know how payday is even going to happen.
They're going to make payroll,
And these problems are absurdly stressful. And so it's not saying that Drake's life isn't challenging and stressful. By all means, different type of life though. And like when you're talking about interval and the challenging times, bro, like dude, I've put my name on businesses and let everyone know about them and hired people in them. And then I've had to hang up the boots and let everyone know that it's not going to work and move on. And it's like, people don't really understand the challenge that comes with that. And it's not about just leaving. It's just about when you're even sticking it out and you don't, and you're questioning it and you're having the doubts.
Yeah, you're in that kind of balance phase. That's the hard one, isn't it? It's like,
because you got these phases where you're like, all right, am I burning cash? Like, is this really going to work out? Is the path we're pushing towards going to work? Do we need to pivot? And when you said just before the show about like falling in love with the problem, not the solution might have to change. That was a lesson I learned in the first company I started, because like I was in love with the solution, this tech idea, but we were helping solve this problem that I didn't even love. And so then when I had to change the solution, we had to pivot. I left the business because I lost all motivation because I wasn't in love with the problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's really powerful.
I think just quickly on that, there's a lot of that in the startup space, particularly, is that you see a lot of like tech startup founder, like it's a bit of a buzzword. And I think people can kind of want the tech startup founder name and then go for the business to get the tech startup. It's like you need the idea and you need to fall in love with the problem first, and then like the name of being a tech startup founder can come after that.
I reckon every single person that's going for the title and that's it's going to wear off. It's going to be very hard. Like it's the same as the social media following.
Oh, mate.
It's like, fuck me, mate. Like that shit wears off, dude.
That goes real fast.
Like that goes real fast.
Enjoy it for the first month. And then
dude. And then when you're having a shit day and you don't want to be seen out, like you gotta now wish for the following day.
Rethink.
Like come on now, man. Come on. But I want to take it all the way back.
Sure,
we've dove straight in here, and obviously this podcast I don't really like to go in chronological order. I just like to really pick apart parts about your story that make it really special. But I want to go back to your childhood. You played footy growing up. You grew up in Victoria as well?
I was born in WA, but then lived in Singapore until I think I was about 7 or 8, and then moved to Melbourne and
for sure.
Footy,
And so as a kid, you mentioned you went to quite a good school, and then as you're leaving school, you've got all the other people that might be getting in the big four banks and doing all that stuff, and here you are just being this clown on social media.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that childhood and how you were as a kid, in those teen stages growing up in high school.
Yeah, so school-wise, I was a little bit of a terror, a bit of a nightmare. I wasn't a bad kid by any means, but just struggled with learning, ADHD, auditory processing, and just the mainstream style of learning just did not click for me. Now, in saying I couldn't focus on Macbeth for 12 hours, but put me in front of a PS3 playing MW3, I'd lock in for 16 hours. So there was a bit of a disparity in what I could concentrate on and couldn't concentrate on, and it very much came down to what I was interested in. Sport was something I was super interested in, so it was able to double down in that aspect. Never crazy gifted though. I was tiny. I think I hit puberty in year 11. So development-wise, I was really behind everyone. So like always kind of bumbling around, playing like I was in A's from like in year 10, but then in 11 and 12 I was in the 2s, so that like hit my confidence. But always found like a love in exerting my body and seeing how far I could push it. So yeah, I think that's like where it all started for me. But yeah, struggled in school, and it was definitely like, I reflect on it with my mate a lot. And we talk about just how like lost we were at the time, like we just had no idea what was going on. And I think a lot of other kids were further developed than we were, particularly socially. And like, for example, I remember kids being like so into like graffiti in like my age, and like, sorry, at my school. And me and a mate just being so like, are we meant to be like, these kids had like scrapbooks of like their tags and stuff. And I just remember being so like, am I meant to be interested in that? Like, should I start researching how to do graffiti? Anyway, I didn't fall into that world. But I think I was just a little bit behind the mark, potentially socially, but also just, yeah, definitely.
What do you mean by behind the mark socially? Like, did you struggle to make friends, or
not at all?
Well, then what do you mean by that when you say socially?
Yeah, I think it was more just like I saw things. I think I just didn't follow it all. Like I would not see what people were doing and then like try and emulate it. I'd like look at it and be like, oh, it's a bit weird, and then kind of do my own thing. Now that meant I have the best like circle around me. I got the best friends, but I wasn't necessarily a leader either. So I wasn't on my own. I had plenty of mates, but I just like didn't kind of follow the norm often. And that like, look, I came from a Steiner school, which was from year 1 to year 5, which is like an alternative form of learning. So naturally off the mark, I'm coming in from 4 lengths back. But yeah, I think that I wasn't a loner or anything, but I wasn't like following people either.
It's so interesting when you say 4 legs back. It's probably not back.
Yeah, probably not.
It's just not aligned with the norm,
Yeah.
which I think has its benefits, so many benefits.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think being in that norm and being okay and being able to fit in there means it's probably harder to get out of there as well.
Mate, totally. Like, bang on. So, and I mentioned I went to a Steiner school, and I'd love to joke about that because it's like a hippie way of learning. Yeah. And in the school I was at, which was a really nice private school, I was super fortunate to go there. That's not common. So, yeah, I think I attribute a lot of my career, or like where I am in my career, back to kind of the Steiner days, because it taught creativity, it taught kind of self-belief and a whole lot of other stuff. So yeah, I take the piss out of it a bit, but I would not have it any other way.
I reckon most people my best mate went to a Steiner school, and then he went to, I don't know if you know TSS in the Gold Coast, but he like went to like a private school and apparently just could not fit in. He lasted like a couple of months and he had to get on his bike and move on because I think you're grown up in a completely different way. And so you get you feel a little bit isolated when you go to these places where everyone's doing the same thing. It's like this culture. It's like you're not a footy player and you try and hang out with your mate and all of his footy mates. You're not fitting in.
Yeah,
like you're not
tough.
fitting in. Like good luck.
Tough.
I got humbled the other week. I went to a rugby game with my mate Keegan, and he's an ex NRL player, and he like knew everyone, and we walk in the Palladium Club and he knows all these people and banter with like a 20-year-old and then an 80-year-old, and it's all this like footy camaraderie. And I was like, for the first time, I felt a little bit out of place. And I'm a footy background too, but I just wasn't as tight as those guys were. And I look at it and I go, that's kind of like a lot of people in life with normal people. Like you might be like, learning something alternatively or doing something a different way, and then you try and fit in and you're like, well, that doesn't even fit in the puzzle. That piece is different.
Yeah. I'm coming from a long way back. No, it is an interesting one. And I think putting yourself in those situations is really good. Like it kind of hurts at the time a little bit.
I still fit it. I could still crack a joke.
You weren't in tears in the corner.
My mate's a bit of an introvert, and he came with me, and he was a bit like, holy shit, I'm out of place here.
Yeah. Well, you've grown up around footy clubs, haven't you?
Yeah. I was in the Suns Academy and played a bit of footy, but yeah, it's just funny. Like the footy camaraderie, it's a different type of laughter and banter.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about that. So you're in school, in high school. You're saying socially a little bit different, just challenge these normal beliefs. And like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Like graffiti, that's an interesting thing that people are interested in.
Am I meant to have a scrapbook of my tags?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start it up. Maybe I'll start up I'm the next, what's his name? Van Gogh, no, the other one. Whatever, Banksy.
Oh, there you go. And when did you start 9 to 5? Were you in school or after school?
No, after school. So went to school, then got out.
Did you go to school with Gab?
Yeah, from year 6 through to year 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah, year 9, I think. Anyway, not all the way through. He went to another school. So we stayed in contact the whole time. I left Wesley, so I went through to year 12, finished year 12, went on a gap year, went to the south of France, worked on private yachts as a deckhand, which is a great experience, something I'd recommend to all. Did plenty of travel, came back, and then I think he went on exchange. And then while he was on exchange, we were talking about, like, we were both hitting the gym, and he was getting a lot of questions about how he built up his body. And, you know, I wanted to kind of get involved in the fitness world. So I was like, I want to do like fitness apparel, and he wanted to do fitness programming. So we merged together and created 9 to 5 Fitness essentially. So I think that was a year after school. And then, just like slowly started bumbling along. We probably got in at a really good time, like just coming into COVID.
Were you guys best friends?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were close as, for sure.
Yeah, right. Living with each other.
Yeah. So I think being that he was at a different school, like it was almost like a friend away from other friends, you know, like I had my schoolmates and people I caught up with all the time. And then like I caught up with him as well. And then like we'd all group together as well. But we were really close, and it was easy to start a business together, that's for sure.
And how long did you guys do that for?
Oh, it's a good question. I think roughly 3-4 years.
I'm just so fascinated by like, what do you think got in the way of that friendship?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's a difficult one to answer because as a business, we worked it really well. But I think the second you add in cash and money coming in, and like, not life-changing money, but money that is life-changing at that age, it becomes like a bit of a scrap for like who's doing more, who's doing less, and so on. So I think that's kind of, once we started making the cash, you know, people start looking around going, hang on, I did this, you did that. Like my skills are more valuable than yours.
Right.
So I think
like your output, like were you guys kind of clashing a bit in the sense of I'm doing more work, I'm pulling more weight and kind of like this?
I think so. Maybe not, like clashing is probably not the right word because it wasn't necessarily mentioned or anything. But I think, towards the end, it definitely became like that. And, you know, I've been on so many podcasts lately actually, and spoken about this a little bit. And I just want to make it clear, like I need to be careful in the way I speak, in that kind of implying that I was doing everything right and he wasn't. It's certainly not the case.
Definitely not.
I would have been a nightmare to work with. And I'm very aware of that. And I've learned so much from 9 to 5 Fitness and so much that I will implement for the rest of my life. But I would have been really difficult to work with. And there's no doubt he was pulling weight. He was working like a dog, no doubt. But I think we just had different skills, and where I valued my skills probably weren't as valued as his potentially. And then it kind of just unraveled. But mate, so we split the business up. There was a disagreement. I think it was like I think I was going out and having a couple of beers or something on like a Friday afternoon at like 5 p.m. or something, and he was still working on like his tasks. So I'd already completed. Anyway, whatever. It unraveled. It was just like stupid stuff. And then from there, I was like, all right, this just isn't working. So we split the business up. Long story short. And then we essentially worked for like a year or 2 years really well together. In that he owned the business, I kind of worked more so alongside the business. Like we kept the podcast going. I was selling my own program. It was perfect. It's a shame that it ended how it did, because it was on track to end in a really beautiful manner. So it's a shame it had to go like that. And, I regret some of the things I did and said, and I'm sure him the same. But we've made up since, and I saw him at BTV which is a music festival. So out of all the places, and we're sweet now.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one with friends like that, because especially it was public and like documented and in the limelight, and I think oftentimes that can get masked as well. It like looks like everything's going so well, and then there might be like little bits of animosity being built up behind the scenes. And when you tie in, as you said, money and business, that can have its own challenges too. But I think it's all like when we actually strip it back, all of these times, all it is character building.
Oh, mate, for sure.
I love using this term of just character building, because like, fuck, whenever you go through some shit, you just go, oh, mate, it's just making me stronger, making the story better. It's just painting an even better picture.
Literally, mate.
Which I love. And so you left 9 to 5, you went out and did your own thing, you got the job and realized it wasn't for you.
Correct, yeah.
I kind of call that the entrepreneurial's journey. I feel like everyone needs to go back into a job.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because what happens is, I had to make this hypothesis because I was like, what the fuck? I keep feeling this way, right? But what happens is you start a business and you are working really hard and you're hustling and things maybe aren't working and you're banging your head against a wall, and, finances might be tough, or there's just like a level of things that aren't going as planned. And you're just craving this little bit of security. Like you just want this little bit of security. Like for me personally, it was like, I don't know how rent's being paid, and I just want to have enough money coming in so I can breathe for 1 second. That was my feeling.
Economic stress has got to be one of the biggest stresses.
I think when you don't know how rent's being paid on Monday, it strips away all of your all your creativity possible.
That's living, baby.
I think it's the worst. I think it honestly is the worst thing, but honestly, builds diamonds too. But at the same time, where I'm getting at with this is you're craving this little bit of security. So what do? You go get a job. And then you work this job. You might be learning a new skill in this job. So the thing that you're progressing in is learning. And so it's okay for the first few months. You're starting something new. It's challenging, or it's something fresh and exciting. And you're getting a bit of money coming in so you can actually breathe. But then 3 months goes by. You're learning plateaus.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, how can I make enough money so I can leave this job? And then you get into a business again. But now when you're in the business, when times get tough and you're craving that little bit of security, you're reminded of what the alternative is. And the alternative is going to get a job, which you really know doesn't work for you.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
So then
I'll start OnlyFans before I do that, mate.
You keep fucking pushing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's so powerful. It's perspective. It's being able to go, okay, I've had that job, it didn't work. Now when it gets tough in business, and when we have all the churn rate through the roof of the subscription on interval or whatever it is, I don't know the nitty gritties, but when you have these challenges, which are inevitable in a software as a service business, like you can now go, okay, what's the alternative here? Are we going to persevere? Are we going to keep going? Are we going to pivot? Are we going to make sure it works? Or are we going to go back and get a job? And so it kind of creates this little bit of a bit more drive to keep pushing.
Yeah. And I think as you grow and become kind of more aware of the cycle, you can kind of spot these things happening earlier. Like I can spot when, hang on, like I didn't earn as much this month. I might need to do a little bit extra in this area to just make sure I'm not in that space where I'm like, I might need to get a job,
Yeah, it's a hectic space, and it's definitely a harder path to live, and we have to recognize that. And you go, but with that, right? There's so much more upside, and also just that progression. And we talk about character building. It's like the character that we build along that journey is what holds the value, and that's what separates you. You said it doesn't take too much to actually be in the top 1%. Like
no, it doesn't.
You just need to do a little bit, right? Because people aren't willing. There's too many lazy people out there.
Also, I think on that thing of it is a harder route to go down. I think influencers or people on social media are kind of thought to make really a lot of money for not a lot of work, and then they just retain that money. I don't think people realize how much. Let's say you get a brand deal. Let's say it's $4,000. Interval's paying you $4,000 to post a reel or whatever. You're gonna have to spend if you want, this podcast, where you are, this podcast is not cheap to run. So if you want to keep staying relevant and keep being on people's For You page, keep being on people's Instagram, you need to spend so much money to make that happen. And I think people forget that. You might earn, let's say it's $150,000 this year, just from sponsorships. you're probably going to have to spend $100,000 on like camera equipment, on like flights, on podcasting, on editors, and people don't actually factor that in. So yeah, like if you want to be an influencer for a year, you can make a hot amount of money because you can load up on brand deals and then you can just not invest that money back into yourself. But it's not going to happen again next year.
Yeah, I think money aside as well, the time. People seem to think that you can just press upload and all of a sudden your job's done. Like creating the content. What, like, do you just think that I can blink and that video ends up on your For You page? Yeah. It's not how it works.
I wish.
Like, I fucking wish. And also, when you try and outsource the editors and they do a shit job, you're like, okay, back to the drawing board again. That's me.
Back on the tools.
And so you quickly realize that, yeah, it's cool. And yeah, you post a highlight reel. And yeah, it looks like you live the most amazing life. And which, look, we're fucking blessed. It's phenomenal. But at the same time, recognize that it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's not.
Like it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But I think what's funny when we strip back like what actually is the enjoyable part, and I think just as humans, and we talk about this all the time, but progression and how important progression is in our life. Like when we're not progressing in our health, it's a lot harder to go to the gym. Like when we're not progressing in the gym, fuck, I don't want to go and do bench press when I've hit the same weight for the last 3 months. Like it's not that enjoyable, right? Because it's not progressing. When our relationships are plateauing, romantic, platonic, when they're plateauing, it's not, you don't really want to go socialize. And when your business is fucking failing and you're in the red, it's not that motivating to fucking go into work and get it done. The progression is where the kind of the enjoyment and the fulfillment lies, I find. Do you think that progression is really important, like in terms of in your life?
100%. And it's literally why I'm boxing at the moment. Like I'm in some of the biggest training weeks of my life. I'm doing like 90K weeks of running, and like the gym is really intense. And I'm still choosing to show up to like a choice boxing class just because I'm craving that progression.
Yeah.
And like I just want to keep learning. I can feel like myself progressing, here and there. I think it's everything in business, relationships. You mentioned that. It's such a great point. And it's like, I think as someone who's like, I'm in a relationship, so lucky for Izzy, my girlfriend. She's just like got such a switched on head. So these kind of conversations are so easy for us to have. But if you're in a relationship where it's not as easy to have these conversations, it might be hard to identify the facts like the excitement is plateauing a little bit. So what can we do to change things up? Maybe it's a different date night, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like it's a really good point and something for anyone listening should really think through if you're in a relationship. But yeah, progression is everything.
I think people when I talk about progression or anyone, they think like business straight away and like, oh, I'm not progressing in my career or in my job. And that's important, but that's not your life.
It's not your life.
And I think honestly understanding that progression is like built within us. We need to be progressing for us to be really enjoying it. But what are the most important things in our life? It's not the business because all the business is doing is unlocking time. Time's important.
Yeah.
So when you actually think about it, like the main three things is health, time, and relationships. So when you strip it back and go, relationships are the key to my emotional well-being and happiness. Like you can have all the time and money in the world and be healthy, but if you have no one to share it with, then what's the fucking point?
Mate, exactly.
And then also you've got time. Okay, well, how do you unlock time? Well, business, because money will free up your time. And then the third thing is health, right? You can have all the time, all the money in the world, but if you're in a hospital bed, like there's no fucking point of living.
No.
And so when you strip that back, you go, we need to be progressing in all the areas that are actually important in our life. And by doing so, that's where the journey is going to be fulfilling. That's where we're going to be able to feel good about ourselves throughout the day.
And I think that it's like perspective, isn't it? So I don't know if you've had a girlfriend while you've been doing this social media thing, but for me, it was a real kind of it was a really like beautiful kind of light for perspective while doing social media. So I blew up on social media, which felt really good, and then all the shit happened. It was like so and so, move along, and then it's been like 10 months now I've been with my girlfriend, but when I met her and when we started dating, it just gave such perspective for like social media is great and I love it and I will continue to, keep progressing with social media, but it's also not the be all and end all. Like I and myself on social media, but I also do have a life outside of it. And I think getting into a relationship really helped that for me.
Talk to me about love and the relationship. I'm really fascinated on how, like, is it good or bad, and the positives and negatives to having a relationship when you're grinding and you're trying to build and you're in that build phase. There's this whole thing around online about like, no, you just need to hustle, like no girls. Like, what impact has having Izzy in your life made on your productivity, your business, and has it been for the better or for the worse?
Absolutely for the better. Firstly, I'm like, I hate that like grind set, like Sigma male stuff. I loathe it, to be honest, because it's just like against everything I've ever preached. And it's before Izzy, I've been like that as well. I think having Izzy in my life, having Izzy, it has been such like perspective, and it's so kind of like I'm so much more efficient in my time. So I will actively get stuff done before seeing her so that we can spend a lot of time together and so we can enjoy that time together. I think before Izzy, I just kind of would have all these tasks to do and I just spread them out across the week. So lose structure straight away. And I think on top of that, like my motivation wasn't quite there. You know, the beautiful thing about having a girlfriend is like there's like this progression and there's this opportunity for progression in life. I think, you know, you and I would be very much the same in terms of I want to be like in the future, in the distant future, I want to be a husband. I want to be a father. I want to work towards that. And having a girlfriend is doing exactly that if you love them and you're on the right trajectory.
I've been pondering on it a lot because I had a girlfriend last year. I had no followers when I had her.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because she was in the spotlight and in the limelight and I wasn't. I didn't truly understand like what comes with that, but I saw certain challenges that she was going through and I just was like, come on, mate. And then you get in there and you go, ah, shit, this is what it feels like. But
she was right.
But Eddie, yeah, exactly right. But I haven't had one since. And I've been in this phase where I'm not sure if I can, if I have the capacity to give a girl what she needs, right? But then I had a realization. I go, is that actually the reality? Or is it just you haven't found the right person or you're not open to finding the right person? Because I think if you can truly find the right person, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario where they're bringing more value to you. And it's this weird thing where you're working so hard. I want to be able to come home and have someone that's calming and wind me down and recharge me. You know what I'm saying? And like have this person there that's actually good.
Yeah.
So then you start thinking and going, okay, now that I've come to terms with that, I'm just going to go and find anyone.
No, exactly.
Like I'm going to, okay, like, so what actually matters? And then you start thinking about what's actually important. And then like I'll meet a girl, for example, and go like, holy shit, like I didn't think that characteristic was so important, but it actually really is. And then you start like thinking about those sort of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like having that, you guys don't live together, do you? No. Like, is it one of those things where it's one of those things you can look forward to and just calm down with and
I think
like
the best way to describe it with Izzy is that like when I'm with her, the noise is just turned down. So like it totally kind of, if I've had the biggest, like most stressful day, when her and I are together, it doesn't matter. Like and I think if you're in a world where, like for us, what is work? Like you technically going to bed is work. You like anything you do towards improving yourself is essentially work because you're not working for the man, you're working for yourself. So like being able to be with her and just like, it almost is a break from work. And that's where I've, you know, from a work perspective, I really found like the benefit. You know, that thing with like meeting, like, you know, if you're not sure if you're ready for meeting a girl and so on, I was the exact same. But I feel like when you know kind of thing.
Do you know what I've come to conclusion with? We take risks in all of the areas of our life, in our business, in our health. We take risks all the time. Then when it comes to relationships, romantic relationships and getting a partner, we don't want to fucking take risk. No. We run around and just beat around the bush and not take the risks and come up with other excuses to not take the risk. Because loving someone is a massive risk. You're being very vulnerable, right?
It is, yeah.
But as I said earlier, it's the key to your emotional well-being and happiness. So if it's the most important thing in your life, think about it. Your kid is going to be half of this person. Like, think about, like, let that ponder for a second. The most important thing in our life, yet you're not willing to take risks on that one thing.
Yeah, literally.
Like, it puts things into perspective. You're talking about perspective all the time, and you go, yeah, there's a lot of perspective that comes out of having a partner.
Oh, there is.
Like, when you actually, I know you think about that, but like, it's legit.
And you can see, I see it in people, friends all the time where it's like, oh, mate, you have not picked the right one, I don't think. Like,
but then the problem is they dig too deep.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard and scary to try and jump out of that hole that they've dug.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the safety in it as well. And, you know, I think I want to go into a story, but I definitely can't talk about it. It'd be throwing someone under the bus. But essentially, like, I can see friends and they're just like stuck in something, and it's like, oh mate, like, bro, you need to harden up. Like, you're gonna have 2 months of real difficult, noisy times, but after that, there will be light at the tunnel because you deserve someone so much better.
Oh, 100%. But it's that thought around, like, the little bit of pain that this person's bringing me. There's still a lot of joy, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of amazing parts about her. But that little bit of annoyance and stuff is worth dealing with than having to find someone new.
Yeah,
it's this
exactly.
really sad thought where you just got to fucking take the leap. And I reckon you need to have non-negotiables and all these things that are characteristics that you think are so important in the mother of your children, quite literally. Yeah. I know we're young, but I'm not fucking around with someone.
It sounds so intense.
But I'm not fucking around for years with someone that I don't see a future with.
Yeah,
because that's like you don't go play around with love, I don't think.
You know what, mate, as well? I think in this world, particularly like footy culture kind of world, if you're not like really intense about kind of who you are and particularly relationships, I think it is a slippery slope because I'm sure like you've seen it around footy clubs, like cheating it's just what you do. And I think a lot of like blokes and a lot of guys, it's just, you know, go on the lads trip, you're just cheating. Like it's just what happens. So, and I'm not saying I'm susceptible to that by any means, but I think I lose my apologies about being so intense in regards to my relationship when I'm seeing what other blokes are doing in their relationships.
But also it's like, why are you not being serious about it?
Exactly, yeah.
Like what are you, why are you fucking around?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't really get it.
Yeah.
We're going to skim over this because I know you probably don't want to talk about it, but we can't just ignore the fact that you went on Big Brother. And
That's not where I thought it was going. Good. I love it.
Sorry?
No, it's not where I thought this was going.
I know, but it's not going to go there because I think we should skim over that a little bit. But what I more so want to, for everyone that didn't know, Louis went on Big Brother. But like the person on Big Brother doesn't even look like I remember when they started posting. No. But where I'm getting at here with this is obviously you filmed the show before you blew up. Then you blew up. They then took control of your Instagram. Yep. And then you lost a lot of followers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and you know, when you're growing all these followers, that's kind of like what you're tying yourself to in a bit. It's like, oh, I'm this success and now what am I dropping off a cliff? And so talking about the feeling when you're watching yourself on TV, but then you're also watching this Instagram that you can't even control, post shit you don't like and losing all of these followers from your page because obviously they followed you because they wanted to see running content. Yeah. Now they're seeing some guy with bleached hair on their screen on a reality TV show.
It was tough. It was probably less tough than I thought it would have been. I think once I recognized the fact I'm just going to lose followers and detached my identity from the fact detached my identity from the followers, I was kind of okay with it. Like it literally just became a number on a screen for me. And it actually became a bit of a game for like, how quick can I make this up? How quick can I make this back? Yeah. And like went back to what I know best, which is making running content. And it came back pretty fast. So it's I'm actually really thankful for the experience. And it's something that I actually, you know, you can't induce it yourself, but for any creator, the regression is actually really important because you can get it back. And like, I promise, if you've got the balls, you will know what to do when it comes to it. So watching the followers unravel, it kind of sucked, but also it was like a little bit of a laugh because I was on Big Brother. my family and friends were watching it, just taking the absolute piss out of me. We were taking the absolute piss out of the show. And then I got my account back and like, right, time to roll the sleeves up and get to work.
And the feeling of growing it back is like you're starting a new page.
Mate, literally.
It's the best.
King's back.
Like the most exciting thing is like that growth phase.
Yeah.
So not from going from 200,000 to 300,000, growing something from scratch. Like my podcast page is gaining so much traction at the moment.
It's awesome.
And I look at it and I go like, this is like giving me this hectic boost.
Yeah.
And like I love it,
Yeah.
even though my personal might be gaining more than that, but like it's starting something fresh. So it's really cool. But I think it's really interesting to note because people would brush over that. They wouldn't realize like how are you feeling when you're going like when you're dropping all that down. And I think it's something that's really really fascinating. But how long ago was that now? And had access to your page for how long?
So that was
now?
December. Last year. So since the start of the year, essentially.
Yeah.
I think I kind of left it until like the start, like the New Year's, essentially. Like I did a little bit of running stuff before New Year's, and then when I got back, I locked in and started building again. And I think it's like, that losing followers and all that, it does come back. It's so cliche, but it comes back to the people around you, and it comes back to like my family, my friends, my girlfriend, who like they couldn't care less about how many followers I have. So
I think there's power in realizing that too, for sure. Do you like you're naming all this like your friends, your girlfriend, your family, the things around you that's so like amazing and supportive?
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything in your life that is lacking right now? Is there something in your life you think's behind the ball or you're missing?
Oh, it's a great question. I think I'm probably missing like a little bit of balance at times. And I'm probably at the moment missing like an element of, so during Big Brother and during losing all my followers and and that, I worked a lot on like kind of self-love stuff. And I think it comes back to why I don't like resonate with the David Goggins stuff is because my self-chat internally is really positive. I'm really like, I encourage myself in a really positive light, and that's helped me a lot. I think recently I've been less on that train. I think I've been a little bit like harder on myself, and being hard on yourself is okay, but I think the self-chat I can improve on. So it'll probably be that, but I think that just comes with the stresses of life. And
is it when you say self-chat, is it like self-worth, like lacking self-esteem, or what's the feelings?
Yeah, potentially. Like I honestly haven't dug too deep into it, but I think it's more just like how I talk to myself internally. I have a loud kind of internal voice. Not that I'm crazy, but like I have a voice that drives me, kind of thing. And if that voice isn't always positive, then I think that affects me a little bit. So, right now, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, stress has turned up a bit in terms of business. I'm going away. I'm going to Europe soon, so I've got to like get my bread up for that and get things rolling. I like, trying to get paid from some people. It's like always hard to do in this industry. So, chasing that up, and I think all of that accumulated has just created a little bit of extra stress. And I just need to watch the way I talk to myself about myself.
Financial stress, it's fucked. It's one of those things. Hey, it as we said earlier, it's like the ultimate stress.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to do something that's, alternative and like challenging, but then you're also striving for so much. And so maybe it's like, I think I strip it back to this expectation reality thing is like when the reality, like if your expectations here and the reality's here, the gap between that's disappointment. And if you have all these massive expectations, the reality is almost always going to be below that. And so you're almost always going to be disappointed. And I think when we're striving for so much greatness, we're setting such big expectations.
Yeah.
And so I think what it takes is getting slammed on your face a few times to remove those expectations and now go, okay, I'm doing everything and I don't have an expectation on what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
So then when the outcome doesn't go the way that I could have dreamed it, which is inevitable, I'm not disappointed. It's like you're a little bit of it. It's like, oh, damn it. But you're not like butthurt.
Yeah.
And I think it's a constant battle of just trying to make sure that, we're not setting these big expectations so that then when things don't go to plan, we're not too sad. But
yeah, I think so. And I think it's just like, back to what I was saying before, it's just like just being so consistent. Like I always run with the mantra of like, it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is. And it's like, it's very much consistent right now. Honestly, like financially, I'm pretty good. But like, I think it comes back to that foresight thing of like, okay, like if we keep doing this for the next few months, like we will be in trouble. So it's like just it's the foresight thing. And I don't know. It's
100%. And it's like, it's just one of those things. But again, comparison of maybe the state you might have been in, and there's all of those sorts of things. So.
But I love it, mate. I love like this world of like balls on the line stuff. Like my head is so over the footy in terms of like interval, and I'm so far into it, and I'm so deep into it, and so is the team, and I love that. And what better age to do it than I'm 25 and I've got no kids, I haven't got a mortgage to pay off, or I'm not locked down to a particular area. So like I should be doing this stuff, and I know when I'm 50 and hopefully a bit more comfortable, I'll be looking back and going, I wish I was 25 and was like balls on the line type stuff.
I feel like at the same time, it's like, what do you have to lose?
Oh, mate.
Like
send it.
Like imagine that whole thing you're saying, like the what ifs. Like imagine getting older and you have kids now and you have all this and you're saying what if as opposed to oh well. Like imagine not giving the things you wanted to go.
Yeah. It's about the biggest nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I'd say that and divorce, my two biggest fears in life.
Divorce.
Yeah, divorce. Just look, I'm never. My parents are still together. I don't have divorce near me at all. But just looking at it, it looks brutal.
It looks pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you think you've been pondering on, or anything that you wanted to, maybe share, or exciting news that you are working on? Is there anything that you've been thinking about recently?
No. I mean, nothing. I've got a few ultra marathons coming up, so we'll see how I go with that. I got
a few
sucked in. I got sucked in by social media, Chris. I put out a podcast. So I put out a message saying I'm going to do the Bali Ultra, and then I then went on my own podcast. I said, actually, I'm not going to do the Bali Ultra. It's like the elevation's too high. I don't want to travel to Bali. I'm going to do the Great Ocean Road Ultra, which is the following week. And then social media, everyone said, no, you're being weak as piss. So now I'm like, all right, I'll do the Bali Ultra, but I'm still doing the other Ultra.
So you're doing two Ultras?
So I'm doing two Ultras. So I got one on the 11th, which is in Bali, which is 3,700 meters elevation, 55 Ks.
In like a week?
In a week. And then one on the 19th, the week after, which is Great Ocean Road, which is 60 Ks.
Jesus.
So.
Man, see for me, I kind of, I just don't have any urge to do that.
Yeah.
At all.
So fair. Don't.
So I don't know what it is. Like the only time I'll run at like 25K or something, unless I've got like demons in my head and I just need to clear them.
Yeah.
The only other time I'll run it is if I can like film a video for it or something.
Yeah,
literally that's about it.
Well, it's funny,
but thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Mate,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate it. I think the audience will absolutely love this chat, and really appreciate you. And if you guys have stuck around to the end, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not already sick of my croaky voice, you make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, or drop us a follow on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are watching this podcast. I'll leave all of Louis' stuff in the show notes. I'll leave Interval app. You got to go check that out for yourself if you are a runner, and then also all of his deets so you can check him out for yourself. But without further ado, I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, mate. Good
Thanks,
job.
mate.